When thinking about card games, digital or otherwise, one thing that I've noticed never fails to unite a section of the community is the interesting lore behind the cards themselves. Sometimes there's like a comic book or a show that acts as the foundation to get people into the game, but that's usually its own separate thing. The actual cards within these games themselves oftentimes have their own universe, or sometimes interconnected shared universes that tell their origins, their backstories, their history over multiple set releases for like an extended period of time. It might start in 2024 and you get the final piece of the story in like 2025. I don't know. I meant to say 2030, but you get the idea. I think my mind can only think 1 year in advance for some reason. Now, when constructing the world of Summoner's Nexus, I was posed with a challenge. You see, I did not consider lore at all when I first created this trading card game. I was focused on the main story, which acts as the backdrop for the world. It's a book of the exact same name, Summoner's Nexus, that I'm in the process of trying to get published. And in the book, the era, which later become the avatars that we summon in the game, are gifts to mankind from the Ancient, the creator of, well, mankind. And over the centuries, mankind learns to commune with the era until the point where they are able to call forth their power and summon them. Like the avatars that you summon in-game are those same avatars that I just referenced in the main story, some of them even having canonical counterparts in the book. So how then could I make lore for these cards? Because it seems like an open and shut case. All of these cards have their origin explained. We know exactly where they all came from. There's no real room for doubt or speculation in that sense. The era came from the Ancient, which is a verifiable fact. And so with such a concrete origin, there's no real room to explore anything lore related. But what about an origin? What about a narrative that isn't concrete? Lore in human history is ambiguous at best, whether it is stories told around a campfire passed down for generations, or even some religions and events that people don't know the concrete truths of, but we all just have this collective understanding of the general beats. So it would stand to reason that despite us, the audience, knowing the divine origin of the era, there would be people in the world of Summoner's Nexus who either don't fully accept or spin their own tales regarding the era. Not only that, but it is well recorded in human history that we as a people have a tendency to fill gaps in our knowledge, things that we don't understand or can't explain, with other things that are beyond our understanding, as a way to try and have a holistic view of the universe. So again, it stands to reason that some people, some tribes, some cultures would pass down stories of events, mystical occurrences that they believe the era to be responsible for or to have taken part in, as a way to explain the world around them. So that was my solution. The lore in this game is literally the lore of the Summoner's Nexus universe. The stories that I tell to you are the same stories that parents might tell their kids before a bedtime story, or that friends might argue over the validity of in universe. This one change in perspective literally made it so that my options for storytelling were limitless, because just a single card, a single avatar could have multiple origins and stories told based on the perspective, beliefs, and understanding of the storyteller. So now I can do literally anything within my game. In Nexus, the lore focuses more on what certain creatures supposedly did, more so than where they came from, and the operative word there is supposedly. You'll find different nomadic tribes that settled in various places that Era currently inhabit or used to inhabit, and they will have their own tales and stories about those Era, even if they no longer live there in the modern times. Now, as for how that gets sorted in the real world, it means that as a writer, there is so much more work to do, because not only am I managing the main story, but the lore for every single subset and potentially every single card that I think of, which, I mean, I am the only writer on the project. I have had volunteers come and help out in the past, but like, I touch everything. That sounded weird. But yeah, I've had volunteers come and help me out to try and come up with lore, and it didn't really work at first, if I'm being honest, because different people have different writing styles and approaches, and also just different amounts of experience when it comes to storytelling. So what I did as a solution was to come up in my head with the story beats. Where else would I come up with it? To come up with the story beats for a given subset's lore, and then potentially hand that off to someone, and it's like, okay, you flesh out the dialogue and like the scenes and so on and so forth, but I have come up with the story, I just need you to follow it effectively. Then after they wrote something, they would bring it to me, I would polish it, go over it, make a couple of changes, maybe go back and forth for a little bit until I was happy with what I had. And so for that reason, there are a couple of story credits that you will see in the game and on the website. But yeah, like I said, lore wasn't really at the forefront of my mind when I was coming up with this game, and so a lot of the lore for the base set of cards is being created retroactively. Like, I'm thinking about what I understand of the cards and what I would expect their lore to be, and like figuring it out from there. The newer cards do have lore sort of built into the design process, but I don't think the lore will ever be the first thing that I create. Like, I've never come up with a story and then made cards based on that story before. When I'm designing, the theme of a card usually comes first, then we come up with abilities based on that theme, then we come up with like a character design that fits that theme and those mechanics. Unless it is a direct like story related card, in which case I will have to come up with a design that fits more into what I want that card to be in the story. The main story, I just thought I'd add that in there. I'm talking about the main story. I made a Figma showing the developers exactly how I wanted the story mode to be structured, with the main story comic as the main focus, and then different pieces of lore that you can either have for free or unlock with currency, and so on and so forth as the game progresses. But yeah, there's gonna be rewards and everything for the stories, and just a way to try and build up hype when a new deck comes out, for example. Just, yeah, I'm excited for it. If you're also excited or you like any of what I've said thus far, consider subscribing. Stay up to date on development news as the game comes closer to completion, and join our Discord, links down below. That way you can, know who to play with, join the community as we continue to grow, and people get their hands on the game. So yeah, have a wonderful day and take care. Bye.